Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Facebook Live from Alzheimer's Orange County. My name is Melissa Klabe. I'm the Director of Education here at ALZA OC, and I'm joined once again this morning by Dr. Miriam Galindo. Hey, Dr. Galindo.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. So today we're going to be doing part 2 of something we started last month, which is becoming a resilient care partner. So some tips and strategies, really I think useful tips for anyone, but especially for care partners. Just ways that we can manage the daily stresses of whatever we're going through. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as we always say. So before we dive in, I want to thank our sponsor, our lovely sponsor, Caring Companions at Home. They are committed to providing seniors with quality in-home care. They have personalized and affordable in-home caregiving services. They give clients the companionship they need to maintain their independence while remaining in the comfort of their home. And they have a lovely 4-step process to ensure a perfect fit. They have a care manager home visit to first assess the needs of your loved one. They do a detailed plan of care. All the hours, services, and fees are outlined clearly. They have a caregiver matching system, enabling you to choose the best fit, and then periodic follow-up visits to ensure that everything is the way that you would like it and up to all of our standards. So if you're interested in learning more, please visit Caring Companions at Home, and we're super thankful for their sponsorship as always. So Dr. Galindo, I figured we'd kind of start off by reviewing a little bit of what we talked about last month. What is stress? What is this thing we're all dealing with? What is chronic stress? And how can we deal with that in healthy ways? So why don't you go ahead and dive in?
Yeah, so today what we're going to do is review the topic of resiliency. We started this last month and covered the first 3 components of building a more resilient life. And the thing to keep in mind, Melissa, is that these are evidence-based strategies that people can do to build resilience in their lives. So in other words, there's always this debate about whether resilient people are born that way or whether you can make yourself more resilient. And in this presentation that we're going to do today, we've got a couple of strategies that you can actually do to build resilience in your life. So we will review what we're talking about in terms of the stress level that's incurred by caregiving, especially for persons with dementia. We're going to talk about what that stress does to the body and to the mind. And then we're going to review the last 3 of the 6 strategies that we began to discuss last month. So the first thing we want to talk about is just this role that all of us and all of you have been placed in, and that is being a caregiver for a loved one with dementia in your home. And those of you who watched this presentation last month will remember that both Melissa and I have had and have parents who had dementia. And so we understand what you're going through on some level, and you understand what we went through and are going through. So the one thing to keep in mind as far as the research is concerned is that caregiving for somebody with dementia is different than any other caregiving task. And that is because there is a need for sustained vigilance. In other words, you're always on. You're thinking 20 steps ahead of your loved one. And the more they are losing their ability to navigate the world around them, the more you are required to be thinking on their behalf, and particularly about their safety and health. The other thing that's very stressful about caregiving is that there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity. I mean, think about the diagnosis itself. Short of getting a biopsy of the brain, which is not possible, the diagnosis itself is a rule out of every other possible contributing factor. And then even when you get a diagnosis that's at least the most likely diagnosis, then the treatment is obscure. And so that's very hard on us human beings who want certainty and some element of control. So keep that in mind as you're doing this job. It is stressful because of that sustained vigilance and because of the uncertainty. And unfortunately, if we if we neglect the signs of chronic stress, it can lead to disease. So let's talk about what happens with the stress response. So here is an image of the stress response that is, if you want to screenshot it and keep it, this is a good one to keep in mind. You've probably all heard about the fight-flight response, and this is what happens when the body perceives itself to be in danger. So when you're facing a stressful circumstance, your body's going to automatically go into what's called a fight-flight response. In other words, it's either going to automatically prepare itself to run, or it's going to automatically prepare itself to fight. And this is not something necessarily that you can control. Your body just does this to ensure your safety. As a result of this flight-fight response that's triggered by the brain, there are a number of different body responses. So there's a dilation of the pupils, dry mouth, fast breathing, heart pounding, tense muscles, slowing of the digestion, and sweatiness of the palms. And the reason for that is any organs that are needing immediate blood or oxygenation are going to be the priorities, where other organs are going to be, receive less attention. So you don't need to digest in order to keep yourself safe. You don't need to uh, uh, sit around and relax when you need to either fight or flight. So fight or flee. So all of these factors are happening rapidly and automatically, and they are designed to keep you safe. So in the short term, if you look at the next slide, in the short term, this response, this fight-flight response is life-saving. If you can imagine, driving your car down a busy street and somebody darts in front of your car, your body automatically knows what to do. It slams on the brakes. And then as you're sitting there, you can feel yourself shaking and sweating and, all of the things that we just discussed. And so somebody's life has been saved, the person that darted in front of you, but also your own, right? But over the long term, and this is what we call chronic stress, it can do some real damage to your body. And the reason for that is because there is the release of several stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline in particular. And that leads to a constriction of blood vessels, but also a surging of that blood through those constricted blood vessels because your heart is beating. The cortisol increases inflammation body-wide. And so as a result of chronic stress, you're going to see a lot of mental health and physical health problems. And this we've listed here on this slide: anxiety and depression, digestive problems, headaches, heart disease, sleep disruptions, suppressed immunity, and memory problems. In fact, with a suppressed immunity response, we have to think of things that the cells respond to, not just your vulnerability to a common cold, but also your vulnerability to chronic illnesses and even some types of cancer. And then as far as memory problems, it's exactly what it looks like. We predispose ourselves to dementia later in life just because of that susceptibility that's preceded by this chronic stress. Now, I want to emphasize here, by the way, the chronic stress is not going to cause dementia, and it's not going to cause these things, but it certainly makes your body more vulnerable. So enter into the discussion what we want to talk about today. There is a need to take charge of you and to make sure that we give you the tools to override your stress response. And why is that the case? Because you need to be able to make it to the finish line. Your loved one needs you, but you also deserve to have a full and rich life. And there's many more people who are going to need you in the future. And you know, you deserve to be the best, and we want to keep that light on inside of you. So resiliency actually is this ability to adjust to the changes around you and to just keep on going and not give up despite adversity, and to emerge a stronger person for it. So note that resiliency doesn't mean that, you know, you were great before and then you're exposed to this adversity and then you go back to being great. It means you're great before you're exposed to adversity, and then when you emerge from it, you're even better than you were before. So resiliency is actually something to be desired, right? A stronger, richer, more amazing person at the finish line. So last time we talked about 6 strategies for building resiliency in your life, and we talked about practicing the feeling, which for those of you who didn't get to see our video, I encourage you to see it. But just in summary, practicing the feeling just supposes a fact, which is the behavior precedes a feeling. And what we talked about was smiling will actually encourage a chemical change in your brain and reduce depression. So just the act of smiling, whether you feel like it or not, will reduce depression and improve your feelings overall, your mood overall. Positivity we talked about, and that was what we called realistic optimism. And we also talked about the one at the very bottom, playing music, and what that does for not only you, but for your loved one as well. Today, we're going to talk about recruiting a posse. We're going to talk about building purpose and meaning in your life. And we're going to talk about taking care of your own physical health. And all of these 6 factors are evidence-based strategies toward building resiliency in your life.
Thanks, Dr. Galindo. I want to encourage anyone watching, just remind you, feel free to comment, chime in with your own examples of ways that you've implemented these strategies in your life, or challenges that you're facing if you're finding it hard to do this. Dr. Galindo, I think whenever we talk about taking care of yourself, or self-care, however you want to phrase it, the biggest kind of most common response, I think, is I don't have time for that. And I love the way that you phrased in the beginning, we have to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our loved ones. And I think when we think about it that way, it's not sustainable to just go, 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 you know, on empty all the time. It's not going to serve our loved ones well. And so if we see it as really an investment into their care, I mean, we should be seeing our own care as valuable as well. But I think as caregivers, we're so focused on our loved ones. I think you and I probably both experienced that to some degree. So just reframing it, you got to take care of yourself. You got to fill your own cup before you take care of somebody else.
That is true. And it's also true that as a caregiver of somebody you love who has dementia, your world does get smaller and smaller. It's very easy because your loved one's world is getting smaller and smaller. And as they are needing more and more, you're so willing to jump in and help more and more. But if you can take a step back sometimes and recognize that this is truly a team effort to take care of somebody with dementia, and it's just, how do I say that? You can certainly take care of them by yourself, because I know all of you, having met some of you in my live presentations, I know you've got what it takes. But it is far better you run a team and you be the CEO or you be the quarterback, and you get really good at delegating. We'll talk more about that with recruiting a posse, because it does make the experience richer. It preserves you. It allows you to refill your soul, and it gives you some lasting, meaningful memories that will last a lifetime, as opposed to wanting to forget some of the challenges that you've had to face. So it'll make more sense as we talk about it. But we're going to talk today again about purpose and meaning. And the first thing I think I want to hit is taking care of your own physical health. And this is an easy one to overlook because, as it says on this slide here, we caregivers routinely focus on the good of others, often to the exclusion of ourselves. So we'll tell you when it's running on empty, but most of us are pretty good at overriding those signs and just pushing forward despite what our bodies are trying to scream to us. So it's important that you pay attention to these warning lights. Here are some warning lights to pay attention to. Missing preventative doctor or dental appointments where you schedule it and reschedule it and cancel it and tell yourself, okay, I'll do it next month. It's really important that you just bite the bullet and go ahead and do those appointments, because a lot of things that could be addressed might be caught early. And so you don't want to wait until way down the road to find an issue going on with your body that could have been addressed early. The second thing is eating less fruits and vegetables. It's really easy to start skipping meals or eating whatever's available instead of what your body truly thrives on. So that's another warning sign when you find yourself eating less fruits and vegetables throughout the day. The third item is drinking less water than what the body needs. Some of us will just keep pushing and pushing and not even realize we haven't had anything to drink. We haven't had anything to eat. And remember that your body is made up of a vast amount of water. And it's important for your heart and for your cell regulation that you do drink. Is an easy one to skip too. That morning walk can often be interrupted by a need or a crisis. And so it's important that you make a commitment to yourself that you're going to go out and take a walk every day, or that you take a walk or go for some kind of exposure in nature, and we'll be talking about that as well. So that is the problem. Now the next slide will talk about the solution. These are the things your body needs, and not only does your body need it to be able to function well, but it also needs this stress. So drinking plenty of water every day, and all of you know the rule about 8-ounce glasses of water a day. So drinking plenty of water a day is a great way to reduce toxins in your body, but also, as we talked about before, giving your heart the ability to not have to work so hard. The second thing is eating plenty of fruits and vegetables every day, following up on dental appointments at least every 6 months. I stick that one in because that's an easy one to skip, and yet addressing bacteria in your mouth can also prevent problems in your heart later in life. Going for that walk and spending time in nature. All of these things are contributing to a resistance to stress and keeping your body healthy. As a disclaimer, we always want to remind you, check with your doctor prior to starting to exercise or dietary program. But we're telling you the very basics. Just take care of your body as it's going through this process. The other component of physical health is that it actually reduces the effects of chronic stress. So as we talked about before, it not only helps your body, but it creates a protective mechanism against the stress. And this is evidence-based as well. So that inflammation that we talked about with the increased cortisol coursing through your body, good nutrition, hydration, and exercise actually reduces inflammation and increases. Also, promoting healthy blood pressure, so your blood pressure can be normalized, your memory can be boosted, your mood can be improved, you will get a better night's sleep, and like we talked about before, those stress hormones go down. So that brings us to our next strategy. We talked about taking care of your physical health. We're now going to talk about incorporating a sense of meaning and purpose. And we start with a quote by that we've got here on the top of the slide. It's not the what that's important, it's the why. So it's very easy in caring for somebody with dementia to get um, caught up in the day-to-day stressors, the challenges that are facing each day, the crises that are facing each day. And if the point of your day is task completion or getting stuff done, you're going to feel chronically frustrated. So the thing that's going to carry you through is to determine, why are you doing this? Why are you caring for this loved one? And if you can define that and you can gain meaning and purpose from it, your ability to transcend this stress is going to increase, and your resiliency is going to increase. It is established in the research that people who have bounce back from adversity. And as we talked about before, I think bounce back is a misnomer. Truly, you're bouncing forward. You're not going back to who you were before. You're actually becoming a more amazing, stronger, healthier, um, more resilient person when you find a sense of meaning and purpose. It also gives us, you and I, the energy to meet these day-to-day demands. If we know why we're here, why we're put on this earth, if we know why we're put into today, and if we know why we have taken on this loving task of caring for somebody with dementia, it will give us that energy, it'll invigorate us, it'll expand our ability to problem solve and think creatively, and have a sense of humor and find the good. um, it's just a very, very important strategy. So here's some things that strengthen a sense of meaning and purpose, because it's all well and good to say, well, you should have a meaning and purpose, but exactly how do you do it? Well, there's a couple of things that seem to quickly get you to uh, that strategy. And the first thing is having a sense of gratitude. So if you're able to, um, let's say, make a gratitude list, or to think of one or two things throughout the day that you are so thankful for, you will build, by way of habit, an ability to overcome trauma and enhance this thing we call resilience. So, gratitude, I think, can also be extended. I didn't say it here, but it can also be extended into saying thank you to other people. And you will find that it's very infectious. If you thank those around you, you will find that they are returning in kind, simply because it's hard to receive a gift and not give a gift back. So that attitude of gratitude will just be infectious, and you'll find yourself experiencing more and more joy. The second thing I think that helps with meaning and purpose is something that Viktor Frankl talks about, and that is immersively imagining the outcome. So what he talked about in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, those of you who, most of you know who Viktor Frankl is, but some of you don't. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who was placed in a Nazi concentration camp. And he presented his findings on what constituted meaning and purpose. And to him, having a meaningful relationship, meaningful work, and meaningful suffering, ironically, made for a full and rich life. And his meaning, what he meant by meaningful suffering, is that you can certainly get through life superficially, but there's something very meaningful about suffering for a purpose. And his strategy for getting through the suffering he endured is to imagine that he needed to live in order to write a book. And he would, in his mind, have this book in, you know, he was writing it as he was going through his experience. And truly, once he was released, he actually did write his book. He also kept loved ones in the forefront of his mind. So he had a lot of love, and he had a reason for continuing to live and continuing to press forward. So how do you find this purpose? How do you find this meaning, especially when there's a lot of chaos and crises going on around you? Well, it's very important that you take some quiet time to listen to your own heart. And the way you do that is through meditation, prayer, guided imagery, maybe on those walks that I had suggested before, maybe as you're exposing yourself to nature. It doesn't take too long, but it does require some time to just listen to what's going on inside of you. And certainly there's going to be a lot of uh, practical stuff to pick through, because I know in my own experience, and Melissa can certainly chime in, there's a lot of practical things that are on your mind when you're taking care of somebody else. But underneath that, at the core of you, who are you? And what is this outcome that you desire? And what is the love that's calling you to do what you're doing? So that's meaning and purpose. So the sixth strategy, and what we call this recruiting your posse, which is just widening that social circle. And I mentioned it before at the outset of this presentation. As dementia caregivers, your world gets very small because your loved one's world is getting smaller and smaller. You may have already experienced it, some of you may not, but the brain of your loved one is responsible for interpreting the world around that person. And as the brain is deteriorating, you will find that your loved one has a harder time screening out stimuli. So going to restaurants can be stressful for them. Going to grocery stores can be stressful. And so they prefer to be in a more quiet environment. And, initially it's the entire house, and then it becomes 2 rooms, and then it becomes 1 room. And literally their world is getting small because they're trying to cope with this brain that's doing the best it can under the circumstances. But by proxy, as a caregiver, you find that your life is getting smaller and smaller as well. Where once you were, doing a lot of things in one day, you're finding that you're barely able to do 1 or 2. And so this is what I talked about before when I said, get comfortable being the CEO who delegates tasks, and get comfortable being a quarterback who's got an entire team that's looking to you for direction, because certainly you're capable of doing this on your own. You're smart enough. You can multitask, but it's not a good idea because your body needs recuperation. It needs a refueling, and your loved one deserves to have a lot of talent, and a lot of hands and a lot of love. So it's okay to widen that circle. So here are some things that truly help with that isolation that caregivers can often find themselves in. And this is, once again, evidence-based. This is what the research finds. Caregivers who talk with other caregivers who understand what they're going through find themselves able to transcend the stress of caregiving. It's not sufficient to talk to other people, researchers find, because other people don't quite understand what it's like to take care of somebody with dementia. Truly, and this, those of you who take care of a person with dementia, when you find somebody else who's got a loved one with dementia in their family and they're the primary caregiver, you feel like you've hit gold. You can't wait to talk to this this soulmate who understands before you even say a word what you're going through, you know. The second thing is to schedule respite care and take some time away, even if it's a few hours a week. And I know that strikes fear in a lot of us. Um, and, you know, some of us who are um, quite territorial, I'll speak for myself. I felt like I don't know if they know all the nuances. I don't know if they can do as good a job as I can do. Um, but there's also an incredible amount of fear. You're leaving somebody you love with somebody and else who's not you. And what if, you know, what if you fill in the blanks. But you will find when you take some time away that your ability to you know, come in with a refreshed mind, a refreshed spirit, um, energized, and with um, you know, creative energy is restored. The third thing that seems to be really helpful is getting educated on the road ahead. So remember how we talked about in the initial slide that stress comes as a result of this uncertainty and the ambiguity of the disease. And one of the most stressful things for us human beings is not knowing what's going to happen next. Our brains crave the ability to recognize patterns and to categorize things and routines and, you know, muscle memory and all the things that, you know, allow us to spin plates simultaneously as we go through our day. We don't do well with mystery. We don't do well with uncertainty. It is stressful. So for this dementia caregiving process, it's important to know what is going to be happening next year, what's going to happen in 5 years. Yeah, it's scary, but it's also stabilizing. It gives you a sense of knowing what to predict and how to some extent, plan for it. So, as I say here, it enhances a sense of control and it lowers your anxiety. And this is why, by the way, our agency, Alzheimer's Orange County, is passionate about getting education and support out there to you. Talking to their caregivers and getting educated is probably the best ways to increase resiliency and reduce that chronic stress that you're going through. So the fourth component of this strategy to reduce that sense of isolation is feed your spirit. And what I mean by that is do the things you enjoy. Yes, I know it's hard to remember the things you enjoy. As you're, um, you know, as you move on with this caregiving task, it feels almost surreal to look at old pictures of what you used to do or be told, hey, I remember that art you used to do. Do you still do art? Do you still play the piano? And you're thinking, I haven't been able to devote the time. um, so I know that it's hard for you to remember some of the things that used to bring you joy, but it's critical that you bring those things into your life, because this isn't a sprint. This isn't something that's going to be a job that's going to be completed in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. This is a journey. It's going to take a while. How long, we don't know. It's different for everybody. There are, you know, some that will say it's about you know, several years. You've probably read and you've heard from us, it can be 8 to 10 years. Some people say 9 to 12. But it's a long journey nevertheless. And so through that time, you've got to feed your spirit. And the where are we as far as numbers? Fifth thing is building that team, as I said before, that it's really critical that you get a team around you, not only for your loved one, but for you too. That the temptation is to start cutting off friendships, skip out on going out to lunch or talking on the phone because you know, you've got another fire to put out, but it's critical that you keep that team um, surrounding you and your loved one.
I think I'm going to jump in here for a second. I think one of the hardest things for me was when I saw some friends of my mom, who's the one who has Alzheimer's, kind of fall away. And so
Yeah.
that feels incredibly isolating. And so I love what you said about, building a team, being the CEO of your team, and really finding those other care partners who understand. That has been so vital for us. And your team might look different than your team would have looked a few years ago if some friends don't quite know how to support you or be there for you, and you may end up losing touch with some people, and that seems pretty normal. It's unfortunate and it's really sad, but all the more reason to reach out to new friends, new support network who understand. Like you said, you meet a person, another care partner, it's like you've known each other for years. You just understand each other, and that is so incredibly valuable. I've had that feeling multiple times upon meeting another care partner in a similar situation. So it's so important.
You said something really important. You said that the friends who are falling away who don't, how did you say it? Who don't know what to do
How to
or how to
support you? Yeah.
how to support. So there's two things that I want to say to that. Um, not only do some people fall away because they don't know what to do, because remember, we human beings like to know what's going on. We like a sense of predictability. Tell me what's going on. And if you don't, that uncertainty can be pretty scary. And because people feel helpless, they will start pulling away. So sometimes, if the person is willing, if you can delegate a task to them, like, boy, it'd be super helpful if you could do, and then give them a manageable task that can be sustained over a long period of time. Um, that person will rise to the occasion and just be a light in the darkness. So that's one thing. The second thing that we need to recognize is sometimes um, family members will start feeling like they're turning on each other. And that can be a source of stress. And if we keep in mind that, once again, human beings don't do well with uncertainty. And what we try to do is grasp for a sense of control to alleviate our sense of helplessness and anxiety. And everybody manages stress differently. Everybody manages their helplessness differently. So you might find in your own family, one person saying, he doesn't have dementia, he's just a little forgetful. And you're saying, are you kidding me? This is serious and we can't just be in denial. One person who says, no, we shouldn't take the car keys away. Another person says, yes, we need to take those car keys away or somebody's going to get hurt. Um, and if we keep in mind that everybody's contending with, their own helplessness, and to whatever extent you can, that you, like a quarterback or like a CEO, that you have a bit of a business meeting where you're saying, this is what we're dealing with. Here's the education I've received. Here are some strategies that will help us. And we all need to be on the same page, because this is a stressful process. And there are things that we're going to journey through in the future, and we need to be on the same page about them. But you're right, the team members start falling away because the road is challenging. It's not an easy road. It's not an easy
Yeah,
road. The
absolutely.
other team member to keep in mind is your medical team.
Mm.
Um, the number of gerontologists in the nation is so small. I heard a statistic yesterday from 2017. It may not be, I mean, I wrote it down because I was horrified at the amount, but there's only 4,000 gerontologists in the nation, according to this statistic, which seems
Wow.
odd. Yeah. But if we keep that in mind, your team is likely to be built of people who aren't necessarily specializing in this area. And so you may see their helplessness. A primary caregiver, or primary provider, a medical doctor, may be really educated in how to fix a problem, how to cure a disease, how to identify an infection. But when it comes to dementia, they don't quite know what to do, and they get a little feeling helpless themselves because they can't fix it. And so you might find your own medical team dropping away, maybe not physically, but emotionally to some extent, or not able to answer all your questions. So, again, as I talked about before, Alzheimer's Orange County is available to provide referrals for support, for education, but also referrals, professional referrals, people that do have the education and background and the passion to help you as you go through this journey, with clinical trials, with people that can conduct an initial assessment, who can help you navigate through this journey more effectively and more efficiently. And just like our sponsors today, who have the caregivers who are trained to stand by you and even take over sometimes, so that you can get those hours you need for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I always include this because I love when you talk about the importance of breathing, something we need to do to sustain life, but often forget how to do in a way that benefits us the most. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, sure. That's so funny that you said that. And I just took a deep breath because I was thinking, oh yeah, I got to breathe. It's easy for us to take shallow breaths because we're always ready for the next task, and under chronic stress, your body tends to take shallow breaths because you're ready for the next shoe to drop. So one of the most effective tools to override the stress response is taking a deep breath. And the reason for that is because that increased oxygenation will actually override the stress response and switch it into a relaxation response. And the relaxation response, if you go back to that initial slide, all of you have the handouts, where the body is, the pupils are dilating, the dry mouth, the slower digestion. Relaxation response is the exact opposite of that. So your pupils are normalized, your salivation is working. Instead of the fast breathing, you've got these slow, deep breaths. Your heart is not pounding. Your muscles aren't tense. You are actually digesting your food instead of getting that burning feeling in your stomach. And so when you take a deep breath, you're initiating the exact opposite of all of those things that are described right there in that column. So do you see that fast breathing? We're actually slowing down our breathing on purpose. And by doing so, we're reversing all of these bodily responses. So the way you take a deep breath is you let out all the air that's in your lungs to begin with. So you exaggerate a deep sigh, breathing out. And then you take in a deep breath on the count of 4 and just fill your lungs all the way to capacity. And then hold that breath on the count of 4, 2, 3, 4. And then let that breath out slowly through your mouth. So breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do that in a set of 3 times a day, anytime you can. You're not going to necessarily find yourself on a yoga mat breathing. If you can, you're a better person, because I certainly couldn't. I was running to and from my car. So I had to slow down my walk, slow down my breathing, take in those deep breaths. And then once in the car, you can breathe a sigh of relief and do those deep breaths again. When you're facing a frustration that involves your loved one, take those deep breaths again. Any opportunity to get that oxygen into your body is a very quick way to override the stress response.
It's like a magic trick. I feel like every time I do it, that's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. You know what else too is when you go on those walks, I'm going to kind of combine everything we talked about today, but I was talking about going for a walk, exposing yourself to nature, and then, listening to your heart and getting that meaning and purpose. Well, a great way to do that is take a deep breath. because once you've got all the distractions of, the practical stuff out of the way, like, oh yeah, I've got to buy this, and oh my gosh, we're out of milk. And once you get all that away with those deep breaths, you can see straight, and your ability to creatively problem solve a lot of what's going on in front of you, it just expands. So you're kind of right about the magic trick. It opens up a world that you didn't even know you had inside of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, great. I wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events we have coming up. We have every month, actually, we have a Savvy Caregiver series. This is a 3-week series. It's 2 hours a week, 4 care partners, and it's incredible. It's a nationally acclaimed course used by many organizations around the country, actually. Just filled with very practical tips, not to mention the ability to meet other care partners in similar situations. I think that's one of the most valuable parts of it. So if that's something you're interested in, please give us a call, contact us. And in just a couple days, we have our annual research conference coming up. It's going to be all virtual, of course. It's going to be half day from 8 a.m. to noon, and it's totally free. You can come and go as you like. It's going to be live streamed. But if you want the link, you can go ahead and sign up. There's the website there, conference.mind.uci.edu. It's on our website as well. We would encourage you to join us. It's going to be really fun, and first time ever doing it virtually. And of course, we also have our walk, which is going to be virtual as well. But as we just talked about the benefits of walking, we hope that you join us. You can, of course, walk or run from wherever you are, and you can join a team or you can start your own. And we really value your support in that way. And I just want to thank, again, Caring Companions at Home for sponsoring this series. Check out all our resources here. We have an online caregiver support group that you can join. Tons of classes on our website, of course, our helpline. We hope that you found today valuable. We hope you can take something away. Of course, that's the goal of all of our classes, that you have a takeaway, something you can use going forward. Dr. Galindo, anything else to add?
No, that covers it.
Great.
It was
well, thank you
wonderful
again for your
to,
time.
yeah, and it was wonderful to spend time with you today, Melissa, and all of you who took the time to join us. We hope that you have a wonderful day, and don't forget to breathe.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.